Lina jolted awake to the shrill ringing of her phone, the sound piercing the quiet darkness of her bedroom. The screen glowed ominously, HEF 300 AM, and the caller ID simply read VE unknown. She hesitated, her fingers hovering over the screen. Who would call at this hour? A wrong number maybe, or a drunk friend. But the persistent ringing gnawed at her, a demand she couldn't ignore. She swiped to answer. At first there was only silence. Then, a faint, ragged whisper slithered through the receiver, so low she had to strain to hear it. The voice crackled, distorted, as if submerged underwater or echoing from some impossibly distant place. Fragmented words reached her. Help, sinking, please, dial Zeba before dissolving into static. Lina's breath hitched. Hello, she whispered, gripping the phone tighter. The line clicked, then went dead. She sat frozen, the silence now heavier than the voice. A cold sweat prickled her skin. Just a prank, she told herself, kids messing around. But the whisper had sounded so real, so desperate. She checked her call log. The number was unlisted, no way to call back. Outside, the wind rattled the window pane, and for a fleeting moment, she imagined it sounded like the creak of old wood, the groan of a ship straining against the sea. Lina forced a laugh, shaking her head. She set the phone down and buried herself under the blankets, but sleep wouldn't return. The whisper lingered in her mind, clinging like damp fog. She tossed and turned, each tick of the clock stretching the night longer. Morning couldn't come soon enough. But deep down, she knew, this wasn't over. The call had felt like the start of something. And when her phone chimed with a text the next day, an unfamiliar number, a single word, asked Lina. Purse her stomach dropped. She hadn't told the caller her name. The calls came like clockwork, 3 a.m., the same haunting whisper slithering through the phone. Lina's fingers trembled as she answered, the silence on the other end stretching before the voice returned, clearer this time. It was a man, his words ragged with desperation. Help me, I'm trapped. His name was Elias, he said, and he was drowning. Not in a bathtub or a river, but in the middle of the ocean, aboard a ship that was sinking fast. The line crackled with the sound of rushing water, the groan of metal buckling under pressure. Lina's breath hitched. How? She pressed the phone closer, as if proximity could make sense of the impossible. Elias's voice was raw with terror. The hull's breached, water's rising, I can't. A choked gasp, then static. Lina's heart pounded. She'd checked the news, scanned maritime reports, no ships in distress, no storms raging on. Yet every night, the calls grew louder, more vivid. She could almost smell the salt water, feel the deck tilting beneath her feet. Sometimes beneath Elias's pleas, she heard others, muffled screams, distant and shrill, like voices trapped beneath the waves. One night, she dared to ask, "Where are you?" The pause that followed was too long. When Elias finally spoke, his voice was different, older, warier. "You know where," he murmured. "You've always known," then softer, almost mournful, "Can't you hear them? They're calling for you too." The line went dead, leaving Lina in the dark, her skin prickling with the unshakable feeling that something, or someone, was listening, not just on the phone, but in the room with her, watching, waiting. Lina sat at her desk, the glow of her laptop casting eerie shadows across her room. The name, Elias, echoed in her mind, a haunting refrain from the late-night calls that had become a twisted routine. Determined to uncover the truth, she typed his name into the search bar, her fingers trembling slightly. The results sent a chill down her spine. Articles from decades ago detailed the disappearance of the SS Mariana, a cargo ship lost during a violent storm in 1972. Among the crew listed as missing was Elias Voss, a junior officer. The ship had vanished without a trace, swallowed by the ocean's fury. Lina's breath hitched as she stared at the grainy black and white photo accompanying the article. A young man with sharp features and hollow eyes, as if he'd already glimpsed his fate. But how could Elias be calling her now? His voice on the phone had been frantic, raw with terror, as if he were clinging to life in real time. She dug deeper, uncovering old sailors' tales about the Mariana. Whispers of a ship cursed to sail eternally, its crew trapped between life and death. Some claimed the vessel still surfaced during storms, its ghostly hull groaning under the weight of its doomed passengers. Lina's phone buzzed, making her jump. The screen flashed unknown caller. She hesitated, then answered. Elias's voice crackled through, clearer than ever. "You found me," he gasped, as if he'd been watching her search. But it's not enough. You have to see. You have to believe." The line filled with the sound of rushing water, the distant screams of men. Heart pounding, Lina realized the impossible. Elias wasn't just a ghost. He was still drowning. And somehow, he'd pulled her into his nightmare. Lina set her phone on the nightstand, the screen still glowing from the latest call. Every night now, without fail, the same unknown number appeared at 3 a.m. This time Elias's voice had been sharper, more desperate, as if he was standing right beside her. But it wasn't just his pleas that unnerved her. It was the sounds in the background. A slow, rhythmic groaning, like metal straining under immense pressure, and faint, distant screams that seemed to rise and fall with the creaks. She'd tried recording the calls, but the playback was silent, as if the sounds existed only for her. The dissonance between what she heard and the empty recordings left her stomach twisting. Determined to prove she wasn't losing her mind, Lina scoured local news sites, maritime disaster reports, anything that might explain the noises. No ships had sunk within the last week, no distress calls reported. Yet, every night, she listened to what sounded like a vessel being swallowed by the sea. The screams grew louder, more distinct, some voices pleading, others wailing in terror. Elias's words cut through them all. It's happening again. Every night, it happens again. She pressed the phone closer. What's happening? She whispered. The line crackled. The groaning of the ship suddenly roared in her ear, drowning out everything else. For a single, terrifying second, she swore she felt the floor tilt beneath her, as if she were standing on the deck. Then, silence. The call ended. Her legs trembled as she clutched the blankets. The room felt colder, even though the window was shut. When she finally slept, nightmares of dark water and grasping hands dragged her under. The phone trembled in Lina's hand as Elias's voice, ragged and desperate, seeped through the receiver. You have to come to Black Harbor, he pleaded. I can't stay here much longer. The water, it's rising, I can feel it. Her breath hitched when he uttered her childhood nickname. Something only her grandmother had called her before she passed. How could he know that? Lina, please, Elias continued, his voice breaking. You're the only one who can hear me. The only one who can free me. The line crackled with the groans of straining metal, the distant wails of unseen voices tangled beneath his words. Lina's fingers clenched around the phone. How do you know these things about me? She demanded, but Elias only repeated his plea, the urgency in his tone making her skin prickle.